The concept of production or manufacturing is basically a process by which goods or services are produced. A typical, should I say, the manufacturing or a production system comprises of three main components, that is, the inputs, the transformation process, and the output. What do we mean by the transformation process? The transformation process is that way by which all the inputs are transformed into a meaningful output. The inputs basically are the kind of things that the organizations require initially, like the manpower, the raw materials, the machines, money or investment, most importantly, all the kind of instructions, the kind of plan, the kind of paperwork that are required to operate. The transformation process, that is where the organization tries to turn the inputs into something meaningful output, involves operations. Most importantly, they have the kind of material movement from one point to another point, inspection of the in process and the different kind of parts, the assembling and testing of various kind of products, the storage of finished goods, most importantly, should I say, the movement of the storage goods from one place to another. These are the kind of transformation process that are involved, and output is definitely the goods and services that reaches from the point of production to the point of usage, that is in the hands of the customer. The combination of these three activities, that is input, transformation and output, is basically where people are employed to create goods and services, is basically known as manufacturing system. So in a manufacturing system, there are certain independent group of subsystem. Each subsystem performs a certain kind of distinct function. Different subsystems may perform different functions, yet somehow they are interrelated and are very much required to be unified to achieve the overall objectives of the organization. If we say in other words that manufacturing system needs to interact with both the internal and in the external environment of the organization. By internal and external environment of the organization, internal environment are those activities that the organization can control from within the organization, like the marketing, the material, the manpower, the investment, which they can control on their own. Whereas the external environment comprises of certain activities which the organization cannot control on their own, like the customers, the suppliers, the competitors, most importantly the government rules and regulations. Now, for any production process, the selection of manufacturing system is a very strategic decision and most important decision, and nowadays has become very expensive decision. The system selected for production should be of such that it can give the organization the desired output, the required quality, and most importantly needs to be cost effective. In general, there is no best manufacturing system or this is the best process by which if an organization manufactures that is best for him or for her. There is no such kind of manufacturing system for any kind of product. The choice of the system depends on various circumstances, but most importantly, it must meet two of the basic objectives, which are to meet the specifications of the final product, that the final product specifications should absolutely be met, and most importantly it has to be cost effective. If these two objectives are fulfilled, so any organization can opt for that particular production process or manufacturing system. Now if we go into the certain kind of factors that determines the choice of manufacturing process, are basically, we can start off talking about the volume or the variety. One of the major consideration in the process selection is the volume or variety of the product. High product variety, that means many products in one or few numbers, require high skilled laborers, most importantly, a certain kind of specified machineries, and detailed and sophisticated production planning and control. On the other hand, if you talk about the low product variety, that means one or few products produced in large numbers, helps the organization to use a very low skilled laborers, highly automated mass production processes using special purpose machine, and very simple production planning and control. So these the organization needs to talk about. The second point is the capacity. The capacity, or the should I say the projected sales volume, is a major influencing factor in, should I say, determining whether the organization should go for the continuous production or stop and start production. Fixed costs, as we have talked about, the costs which generally does not change with time, are high for the continuous kind of process, but on the other hand very low for the intermittent process. Whereas for variable cost, the cost that changes with time are more or less vice versa, that is high for the intermittent process and less for the continuous process. So if you see here, that intermittent process will be far more cheaper to install and operate at low volumes, whereas continuous processes will be economical to use at the high volumes. Coming back to the third kind of should I say factor that helps the organization select the manufacturing system is the flexibility. Flexibility implies that the ability of the company to satisfy varied customer requirement. Flexibility and product variety are very interrelated. If more variety is to be manufactured, the manufacturing facilities will have to be more, should I say, commonized, and should be depending upon the volume of the product. Greater the product demands are, intermittent manufacturing, which is associated with higher inventories, large manufacturing lead times, and elaborate planning and control. So for higher kind of variety, intermittent manufacturing is very important. Now coming back to one more factor, here you will be we talk about the efficiency here. What do we mean by efficiency? Efficiency measures the speed and the cost of the transformation process. Efficiency can be at its highest when the product is massively produced. But to produce a mass amount of product, greater sales volume are also required. So, depending on the sales volume, product variety has to be considered, and any process which gives the best efficiency in terms of the usage of machine and the usage of manpower will have to be selected. Another particular aspect we need to keep in mind is the lead time. Lead time, if you appropriately call it, the delivery lead time expected by the customer. That means how soon the demand meets without losing on sales. This particular lead time is another major influencing factor in this kind of competitive market. As the rule nowadays goes, faster deliveries are expected in a competitive market. Therefore, it might be required to be produced, any product that needs to be produced should be produced to stock using the principle of batch and mass production. So these are the certain kind of should I say factors. And one more factor, yes, I just forgot about to discuss about one more factor, which is the changing environment. Changing environment means every single day the process and the products are changing, and most importantly the technologies are changing very very fast. So every single organization, if they do not adapt to this kind of technological changes which is there in the market right now, it will be facing extinction after a certain point of time. So adapting to this ever changing environment becomes one of the most challenging part, and depending on the adaptation, the production processes also changes from time to time. If we now come back to the classification of the manufacturing system, classification of manufacturing system can be divided into two broader category: the intermittent production and the continuous production. Under intermittent production, there are basically three types of major production systems, like the project production, the job production, and the batch production. Whereas under continuous production, there are basically two broader parts of production, that is mass and flow production and process production. Let's start off with the first category under intermittent production, that is the project production. Project production is basically a kind of production system where a single assignment of a complex nature is generally undertaken for completion within the given period of time with the given estimate of the expenditure. The output of this particular project is a product, and such products are generally characterized by immobility during transformation. That means it generally cannot be moved from one place to another place. Operations of such products are generally carried out in the fixed position type of layout. We'll be talking about layouts in a different kind of slide. We'll be talking about it later on, but this basically the project production is carried out in a fixed position kind of layout. The major characteristics of the project production is that it has a definite kind of beginning and a definite end. Most importantly, this kind of project production involves many tasks which have its own kind of specialization to be performed by various agencies. So in project production, involvement of various agencies are very important. As we have previously mentioned, that fixed position layout are very important for project production. As we talk about, as we have said that, the fixed position generally means the immobility of that particular product during the transformation. The product cannot move from one place to another place. So the machine will have to move from one place to another place. Another most important characteristics of project production is that the non-uniformity of the requirement of the resources. Requirement of resources in this project production is generally not uniform. Generally, the resource requirement, those are the manpower, the raw materials, the investment in the beginning of the project requirement is very low. But when the project is processing or progressing, the build up is very fast as more and more resources are required during the end of the particular project. So definitely, when this kind of leading up period is there for a certain kind of project, delays often take place in the completion of the project. Such delays generally are very expensive due to the increase of the cost of factors of production, and in the end, the high cost overrun is a basic kind of criteria for the project production. For project production, if you say these kind of production can be seen in the production of ships, the locomotives, the aircrafts, the construction of roads, buildings is absolutely suitable for these kind of project production. Coming back to the next variety of production, that is the jobbing production. It is a kind of production where one or few units of products are produced according to the customer requirement within the given date and within the fixed price given prior of that particular contract. as we have said right now, that under the job production, a special or non-standardized products are produced with the orders received from the customers. As each product is non-standardized, varying in size and nature, it requires separate job for each production. The machines and equipments are adjusted in this production in such a manner so as to suit the requirement of that particular job. Job production basically involves the intermittent process as the work is carried out as and when the order is received. It consists of bringing together of the raw materials, the parts and the components in order to assemble and commission a single piece of equipment or the required product. The major characteristics of this kind of job production is a large number of general purposes machines are very much required. A large number of workers are required, but with various kind of skill set. Needs to be employed. Most importantly, there are different kind of variations in production. Also, the investment requires flexibility because of the variation of the workload. A large inventory of, should I say, material, parts and tool will be required. So large work in progress is there. The machines and equipment settings generally has to be adjusted in job production and readjusted again to the manufacturing requirement. And most importantly, the movement of the material through this particular process is very intermittent. So basically what we require here are the general purposes machine. Most importantly, a disproportionate manufacturing cycle time, very highly skilled labor. With the highly skilled labor, the one who will be, should I say, supervising them, they needs to be knowledgeable, and most importantly, due to the variation of work, a large work in progress is generally there with job production. But job production has some limitations attached to it. The limitations are, should I say, the large scale production. In certain kind of large scale production, the kind of economies that can be achieved, because that kind of economies of large scale production cannot be attained in job, because the production is done in very short runs. Then furthermore, the limitation is the demand is irregular for some of the products. Most importantly, the use of labor and equipment may be in an inefficient way, and most importantly, the assessment of the cost is very difficult under these kind of highly changeable kind of production, which the job production is generally. Most importantly, job production is basically suitable for the should I say, kind of work that is shipbuilding, car constructions, dam constructions, a kind of building of bridges, book printing. These are any kind of cloth manufacturing. These are the kind of special kind of work that are done under job production. Batch production generally indicates to repetitive kind of production. It refers to the production of goods, the quantity of which is well advanced known. Most importantly, the batch production is that form of production where identical products are produced in batches on basis of the demand of customers or of expected demand for products. This method is very similar to job production except the quantity of production. Instead of making one single product, as in case of job production, a batch or group of products are produced at one single time. It should be remembered here that one batch of product may not resemble or may not be same with the next batch. Under batch system of production, the work is divided into operations and each single operations is done at one time. After completing work on one operation, it is passed on to the second operation until on, so the product is completed. Batch production, should I say, is divided, as we can say, has been divided into different kind of operations. Should I say, batch production can fetch the benefits of, should I say, repetitive production to a large extent if the batch is of a sufficient quantity. Batch production may be defined as the manufacturing of a product in small or large batches or lots by a series of operations, each operation being carried out on the whole batch before any subsequent operation is operated. Some of the major characteristics of batch production system are the tendency of the work is very much repetitive in its nature. There is a certain kind of functional layout of various manufacturing processes. One operation is carried out on the whole batch and then it is passed on to the next operation and so on. Same type of machine is arranged at one specific place, that is the general purpose machines, and most importantly, it is generally chosen where the trade is seasonal or there is a need to produce great variety of goods. Most importantly, what we have here, flexibility of production schedule is also very much important, because any kind of disruption to machine breakdowns or absenteeism seriously can delay the production schedule. Most importantly, the manufacturing cycle time, another important characteristic, the manufacturing cycle time is generally affected due to the queues that are there, as the manufacturing cycle time is generally smaller in case of batch production than the job production, but the batches of work tend to queue up at different machines due to different kind of cycle time, the batch size and the sequence of operations. The kind of things or the kind of products that are generally produced under batch production, we can say it to be any kind of pharmaceutical products, the paints, the chemicals. We can say any kind of electric motors, heavy motor vehicles. We can say, for example, ready-made garments, any kind of machine tools or the assembling shops of the machine tools. So these are the kind of things that needs to be produced in batches, or these are the kind of things which, if it is produced in batches, is one of the most important production process for these kind of products. The method of mass and flow production involves the continuous production of standardized products on a larger scale. Under this method, production remains continuous in anticipation of the future demand. Standardization is one of the most important bases of mass production. Standardized products are produced under this method by using the standardized material and equipment. There is a kind of continuous or uninterrupted flow of production which can be obtained by arranging the machine in a proper sequence of operations. Process layout is basically best suited for the mass production of units. Flow production is the manufacture of a product by a series of operations, each article going on to a succeeding operation as soon as it is completed. So flow production is one of the most important part of the assembly line production. The manufacturing process is broken into separate kind of operations here. The product completed at one operations automatically gets passed on to the next until the product has been completed. Generally, there is no time gap between the work done at one process and the starting of the next. The flow of the production under mass and flow production is very continuous and progressive. The major characteristics of mass and flow production is that the entire unit flows from one operation to another throughout the entire process. There will be each or one type of machine for each processes. The products, the tools, the materials and the methods are absolutely standardized. Production is done on the anticipation of demand. The production volume under mass and flow production is usually very high. Machine setup in mass and flow production remains unchanged for a considerable longer period of time. Any fault in the flow of production can be generally immediately corrected. Otherwise, the entire production process is absolutely stopped. Most importantly, under this process, relatively low skilled labor is generally employed and the supervision is relatively easier as only few instructions are required, and that too generally at the start of the job. Most importantly, another most important characteristics of mass and flow production is the manufacturing cycle is very short here. The machine capacities are balanced by duplicating machines wherever it is required. So a properly planned flow production or the mass and flow production method has a genuine kind of advantages. Advantage which they have is the product is not only standardized, but also any kind of deviation of quality, if there is, can be detected at the spot. Accuracy of product design and quality can be achieved. The accuracy of designing and the quality will help to reduce the direct labor cost. There will be no need of work in progress because products will automatically pass on from one operation to another operation. So definitely, if the flow of work is this simple, the lesser need of control is there. A weakness of any operation or disruption of any process comes to notice immediately within this. And most importantly, if there is the minimum need of keeping work in progress, the storage cost is generally reduced substantially. So these are generally the advantages of mass and flow production. The type of products that are produced generally under mass and flow production are the units where the continuous manufacturing industries are required, like the plastic goods, should I say the hardware or the software of the, should I say, computers. Manufacture and assembly shops of automobiles, refrigerators, radios, television, any kind of electrical gadgets, and most importantly, all kind of domestic appliances. These are the kind of products which are best suited for the mass and flow production system. In process production, the production is characterized by the manufacture of a single product produced and stocked in warehouses awaiting sales. The flexibility of such plants is almost zero, as only one type of product can be produced in such plants. As we have said just now, process manufacturing is a production method that creates goods by combining supplies, ingredients or raw materials using a formula or a recipe. The production process often requires a certain kind of conversion, or to be specified, a thermal or a chemical conversion such as heat, time or pressure. As a result, a product created through process manufacturing cannot be disassembled back into its ingredient parts. For example, if I just give you one example, a certain kind of soft drink once being produced cannot be broken down into the separate ingredients. Process manufacturing relies on the process of or the flow of sequential steps, with the completion of one step leading to the start of the next step. Process manufacturers generally rely on the tracing and the scheduling tools and softwares to maintain the peak operational efficiency. The major characteristics of process productions are the special kind of machines with built-in controls are absolutely the need of the hour for process production. A highly mechanized materials handling should be there to move materials from one stage to another. The manufacturing cycle of this process production is virtually zero. The whole plant acts as one large machine wherein the raw materials enter at one end and emerge as the finished products at the other end. The labors that are required to be very low skilled, but in this case the supervisor in the process production should be highly qualified and is expected to possess the considerable knowledge of the processes involved. Most importantly, there is a very negligible kind of work in progress under process production, as the inventory is very small, as the material flow is very continuous. The kind of products that are produced generally in process production are the sugar, the steel, cement, paper, soft drinks, any kind of oil refineries. All these are best suited to be produced in process production.